Hello and welcome to The Round So Far, brought to you by AAMI. I'm Sarah Olle. This is Kane Cornes and Kane. We begin out west at Optus Stadium because, hallelujah, the Roos, they are finally on the board in 2024.
How good was this? There's Jai Simpkin, the skipper. He kicked 2 big last quarter goals, so their first win since round 24 last year, of course, against the Gold Coast. They made hard work of it, but at least they were in this game of football. They sung the song, as you can imagine, with real gusto, and credit to them for hanging on, because at one stage it looked like West Coast at home were going to completely run over the top of them.
Well, it was such a weird final term, wasn't it? Because the Eagles, they found themselves 33 points in arrears. They mounted a stunning comeback, got their noses in front, and then the Roos, they just steadied themselves at the end.
Yeah, I love this from Comben. So once they got down by 2 points, you can see they realised we're going to have to go here. That chase from Zerha, I haven't seen much of that from him this year. And Larky, this kick here is so smart. He had a huge game. We'll get to him shortly. But that's just clever. And then the big moment that everyone is talking about, was that a free kick to Wardlaw? The umpire said no. Elliot, I think he did drag that in. I think that is the right call, as harsh as it is and as instinctive as it is as a player when the footy is there to drag that in. Adam Simpson was asked about it after the game. Couldn't say a whole lot, but there's the finish and there's the one to put North Melbourne back in front from Simpkin. Controversial, but I think the AFL would say if you drag it in, you have to get rid of it, and he didn't.
It's hard to begrudge Nick Larky, isn't it? And he's our Saturday star. The 5 majors today. He's just the kind of player you'd love to play alongside Kane. He is so honest and fronts up week in, week out.
He does, Sarah. Look at his record in wins. Imagine if he played in a good side, like what he did last year as an All-Australian in a team as poor as North Melbourne. So there's his record in his last 4 wins, 5, 9, 4, 6. Today, I just love his second effort. So he doesn't mark that, but he just never gives up on the second play, and that's what I think separates him from the other better forwards in the game. So look, that he drops that, probably should have taken it, gets straight back up, never gives up on the play and always stays involved. So credit to him. It had been a little bit lean for him in the last few weeks. You can understand why with the performance from his side, but today he got some better service, and he's always done
How's that goal?
So well. That's clutch. Absolute clutch. He's a genuine star of this game.
I thought the Roos, they were very tough, particularly in those first 3 quarters, and the Eagles, by contrast, they looked a little bit impotent without Harley Reid and also Tim Kelly.
Gee, they were flat, absolutely smashed. So from quarter 1 to quarter 3, that's the number. So that's the real concern for Adam Simpson and the Eagles, plus 27 in scores. Clearances that absolutely dominated. North Melbourne couldn't put that into scores because they couldn't get the connection right with their forwards, but the tackle number in 3 quarters, that's a smashing, and contested possessions as well against a young North Melbourne side who hadn't won a game all year. They would have expected better, and performances like that when Adam Simpson's record is 8-50 or 8-52 in his last 60 games will highlight the pressure that will come to bear upon him again, particularly after the Adelaide performance and this one today.
Let's head to Marvel Stadium next. It was another tight finish. St Kilda holding on by just 3 points over the Gold Coast Suns.
Took Miller, escaped the tag from Windhager and kicked that one, and you thought, well, and then the Ainsworth, where was his teammates on the line? So Caminiti gets that. You look at this is like, we're talking centimetres. Moyle was the only one back there for Gold Coast. That needed to be shepherded. That's game over. We know how hard it is for the Saints to score. And then Mac Andrew gave this free kick away, which is a disgraceful free kick, really. We're looking at it from behind the goals. Both players are holding each other. Both players are scragging. Both players' arms around. Yet the umpire off the ball 100 metres away has pinged that one, and King kicks the winning goal as the Gold Coast go forward and they run out of time. But yeah, it was a low-scoring, dour affair. The Saints took 137 marks. Questions around their game plan won't go away.
They were miserly. St Kilda's defence restricting the Gold Coast Suns to their second lowest score of the season, just 48 points. And it was in the air, I think, they had a fair bit of dominance, Kane.
They did. I mean, they just had so many numbers back. So this is fine. And clearly they made it incredibly difficult for Gold Coast to score. But they got to give up some of this. So this is all good. But when they win it back, then they have to go. So their ball movement, just they can't go because of this reason. Every play here in front of the ball, I think they're going to have to look at keeping some forwards deeper. So when they do turn the footy over like this, then you've just got to go faster. So credit to them for keeping Gold Coast to 7 goals and doing that. And Wilkie and Battle and Wangani Miller were enormous, and Sinclair plenty of intercepts, Wood getting back there. But they've got to give some of those numbers back so that they can actually score, because to score another 7 goals tonight, Saints, that's not a game plan that is going to take this club anywhere.
Now, I'm not surprised to see this next item on the rundown, Kane, because you love a tagger. And on the back of his success last week on Harley Reid, Marcus Windhager, he goes to Tuke Miller, and that proved pretty influential.
Yeah, I just love a battle. And this was a genuine one-on-one battle. Both players absolutely tried their hard. I respect Miller so much, because midfielders aren't used to this sort of attention, because they all just do their own thing. But he did not give up. And Windhager is such a disciplined player. So to keep Tuke Miller to 14 touches and only 4 clearances, I love this. This is just absolutely brilliant. And he's just dedicated, and he's turning himself into one of the better defensive players. Now, he may not have that role every week, so he's going to have another string to his bow. Can he play wing? Can he play half back? But tonight, you restrict such a prime mover for the Suns to 14 touches. Went a long way to that win. It
was a case of same old for the travelling Suns, though, wasn't it, Kane? And we look at their record on the road this year. It's horrible.
It's awful. What he's got. So he hates playing at Marvel. So we know that. He's put that on the agenda, but he hates getting on a plane as well. And he's finding out how hard it is to coach a non-Victorian team. You're not at Richmond anymore, where you play 14 at the MCG. You've got to jump on a plane. So they'd be really disappointed by that performance and their inability to score. So there's their away fixtures to come.
Any winnable?
Well, yeah, a lot of them really.
Yeah.
They should knock off North Melbourne and West Coast and Richmond. They've got the easiest draw of any team, I think. I think it was set up so well for them to play finals for the first time. And at home, you'd say, okay, they're a completely different unit. I don't know what it is, but clearly they couldn't cope with those numbers behind the ball and the Saints' ability to possess it. They looked good in the second half, but just too little too late.
Let's head to Launceston next. It was the Red Hot Hawks with another red hot win, this time over the GWS Giants. They are in a rich vein of form, Sam Mitchell's side.
This was an amazing game. This is one of the games of the year for me. I love watching Hawthorn play at the moment, and the challenges that they went through, particularly in the last quarter of this game, where they lost their ruckman Reeves and they had to rejig the whole of their midfield. They lost hit out 17-3 in the last quarter, yet managed to win clearance. Weddle went forward, he went into the ruck. He had Connor Nash rucking. They did all sorts of things, and these are the controversial free kicks late.
What about this moment?
Yeah, once again, I'd rather see that play on, but they've paid it all year, haven't they? Well, we saw it with Harley Reid last week, and whether Chol was the player closest to the ball, he absolutely was, but somehow Luke Bruce found himself with the ball in his hands, and who better hands to have the ball than right footer on that spot. Such a skillful player. He was a sub, came on and kicked too. So we will be talking about that. There was a Newcombe free kick which we saw. There was a Ginnivan head high that we saw. But in the end, you've got to hand it to Hawthorn and their recent records. They're beating some really good teams, Brisbane, the Western Bulldogs, now the Giants. And do you reckon they can play finals?
I think they can. Although that percentage isn't too great, but they're looking like a team that's capable, Kane. And they've got a coach who I think is capable too, Sam Mitchell. I found this insight just after halftime really compelling. He sensed his team were down and needed a spark.
Yeah, that was basically selling some hope and message that we're actually going okay. We just can't hit the scoreboard. I think both sides of the ball, we've given up a couple of goals that we would like to be able to stop with, some poor defensive structure and effort, and then also not being able to make the most of our chances at the other end. So there's a little bit of flatness amongst us. So I was just trying to really spark them up and make sure we've got a bit of energy about us in this second half.
Well, I'll tell you what, they certainly responded. They were down by 19 points at halftime. They then kicked 6 goals to the Giants too in that third term. I mean, the numbers say it all, don't they?
He just knows his team. That's what I admire about him. It feels to me like a coach that is so well connected to his group, and he knows what message to send at any given time. So that's an incredible insight. And then to get the response from his players who are flat at the way that they were playing, and to do that, I thought some of his changes, so Hardwick's forward, but then in the last quarter, he goes back. He'd been criticised for that against the Port Adelaide game, but he went there again. The Weddle move forward got them a goal early in the last quarter, should have got them another one. Nash on Green was a good role, and then he went into the ruck. So I just think the moves that he's making is really innovative. I've called him a genius before, and that's stacking up pretty well. I think he's tracking well on the way to be the next Chris Scott as a coach.
So that's the Hawks side of the equation, but what about the Giants? Because for mine, I had them as a pre-season flag fancy. They've now dropped 5 of their past 7 matches. That doesn't really marry up with the premiership team, Kane.
You weren't alone. Particularly they won their first 5 as well. They can't score. So if you're looking at their inability to score, like they haven't scored over 80 points for a long time. They only took 6 marks inside forward 50 today. So it feels to me like there's a bit of the Saints about them. They're so focused on defence and their small forwards play a critical role in defending the ground that's been at the expense of their ability to score. And despite the fact that they've got Brown and Cadman and Riccardi and Hogan and Toby Green and all these weapons, they're not putting that into practice. If it wasn't for O'Halloran today who kicked 4, they would have got smashed. So what about the game next week against Port Adelaide off the bye? That one will be a huge one in the context of both teams' season.
Let's head back to Marvel Stadium. Friday night footy, and the Lions far too good for the Bulldogs. 43-point winners. Lachie Neale leading the way with 38 touches, 10 clearances and 2 goals. But I thought it was the bookends, the Brisbane bookends, Kane, that really held up their end of the bargain.
You're right about that. So here's Harris Andrews. What about that? You know when you play Brisbane, don't kick it to Harris Andrews in the air. But what about this? Is what I want. The effort from Hipwood. So Andrews does this regularly. Hipwood doesn't. This is as good a game as it's career best game career best game for Hipwood. But it wasn't the 6 goals. It was his effort, his intensity, his speed, and his courage. So I get the feeling that Chris Fagan may have given him a warning that his place in the side was at risk. That's just a gut feel that I've got, and it would have been fair because his performance for too long has been poor. But this is the first half mauling from Brisbane. So I've been critical of Brisbane and the coach at times this season. You've got to hand it to them because they went on a mission to absolutely hunt the Western Bulldogs, and they hunted them in every area. They went after Bontempelli. Look at this, absolute mauling, as we've called it, Lions first half mauling. That's what it was. So they had the week off, went with a mission, got after them, were really aggressive. Their good players played well. They targeted Bontempelli, and if they play like that for the rest of the year, then they can certainly make a decent run of it.
I mean, that was a massive tick for Chris Fagan, wasn't he? He sent Jared Berry to the Bont. You can see there, just 6 disposals to half-time. Of course, Bontempelli, he went forward. He's a champion. He found a way to impact the game. But really, that's as big of a win as you're going to get.
Yeah, I love Berry in this role. He's done it before on Oliver in big games, and he got under the skin of the opposition. They were too distracted, so Libba gave away a free kick. Berry actually won 4 free kicks himself. Usually it's the other way. You see this one from Libba there, gets him high, free kick. Umpires were all over it. So when teams play against the Western Bulldogs, they are so reliant on Marcus Bontempelli. Here's a warning: go after him and try and limit him, like the Brisbane Lions did, because this is the result that you get. On the flip side, the Western Bulldogs let Lachie Neale do whatever he wanted. 38, kick 2, ran around all night with no one anywhere near him. That was the contrast in the performance. Bulldogs pretty comfortable with how they were going. The Lions weren't. They went with a mission, and they accomplished a significant victory.
Time now for our AAMI clangers. Who covers clangers? AAMI does, and we begin with this rather unusual goal from Adam Schlor.
He's not happy with it. A goal's a goal. Adam.
Exactly.
I'll be happy with any goal you've got. And he's almost disappointed with the way that it went, bounced over the head of Lachie Neale. He was good today, Charles. 1, 2, there's another one, 3, but unfortunately he shanked the kick, but gee, he was a good player today.
He does some weird stuff on the field, doesn't
this?
he? Yeah. I mean, out of mid-air. How good's that? I mean, didn't get the result, but he had a go.
Right
and this one as well, the scoop.
Yeah, no, he does. He's a very innovative player. If that had have come off, you can see the score there. He was a bit flat. So, no, he was awesome today. I think his last 3 or 4 weeks has been excellent for the Hawks as well.
Let's head back to Thursday night footy. The City of Churches, it was a plucky Richmond with an 8-point win over another disappointing Crows outfit. They just can't win a close one, Kane.
Yeah, and when you drop Riley O'Brien, who's been an absolute warrior for you for the best part of 5 years, and you play a 28-year-old ruckman in his replacement who comes off the ground with sore groins, they got smashed in the ruck. So Nankervis did what he wanted, and unfortunately for Strawn, I don't mind. I actually think they could have played both of them and should have played both of them. He went off, Burgess went into the ruck, and then they had no hope. Look at what Nankervis did, which is exactly what a captain, big ruckman with a size advantage should do. So Adelaide's midfield has been a topic all year. There's such a sameness about it, and with Baker in and Shea Bolton back in and Taranto back in, Richmond were able to exploit that area, but it was a mistake to drop Riley O'Brien.
Darcy Fogarty really threatened at times, 3 goals in the end. But you want to have a look at this behind the goals vision, because what was with his positioning late in the game?
Exclusive behind the goals vision. This was the first half of the game, or parts of the game where he was deep and he looked so dangerous. Then in the last quarter, I'm watching Darcy Fogarty at the ground, and why is he so high? He's coming so high up the ground when he needed to be deep and exploit the matchup. He kicked 3, and I'm looking at, and it's Berry, Sam Berry, and Keys and Rochelle. That's where Fogarty should be, and that's where he was at his most dangerous on the night. And this happened all last quarter. So you got midfielders for Adelaide playing deep forward, and Fogarty's leading almost a centre-half back. I mean, do you think Richmond care about Adelaide's most dangerous forward there? Absolutely, they do not. And I just thought it spent so many of his petrol tickets to get up the ground and then trying to get back and reset. And I'm highlighting those forwards down the bottom there. So it's just, Ned McHenry's not going to do it for you. Sam Berry's not. Keys is not a deep target 50. That is Fogarty, and that's where he should have been. So we had to go behind the goals to confirm this, but I just thought it was poor positioning from Matthew Nicks. And when he makes decisions like dropping Riley O'Brien, his positioning of Fogarty, the most dangerous key forward in the lineup without Taylor Walker, up the ground and kicking to midfielders who shouldn't be there, I think we need to actually question his coaching and his coaching staff tactics.
Well, it was a fascinating exercise just watching Matthew Nicks throughout the game and in his post-match presser as well. I mean, you're an Adelaide boy. What's the feel like in your hometown when it comes to the Crows and Nicks, who was re-signed at the start of this year, but he's still under so much pressure?
They're under the pump,
Yeah.
absolutely. But it's not just Matthew Nicks, and it shouldn't just be Matthew Nicks because they've missed on a whole heap of first-round draft picks in the past. So what he's got to play with isn't as many weapons as other coaches have got, but they've had all sorts of trouble with intercept defenders all year. He hasn't been able to combat that. His selection, his midfield group, they've recruited a lot of midfielders that he just won't give midfield time to, like Pedler and Berry and Rochelle. They're stuck at half forward, a position that they're not familiar with. So this rest of the year needs to be about experimentation. Play the young ones, play them through the midfield, give them some exposure and see which group he's going to go with going forward. But yeah, lucky he's got that contract extension because I think it would have been a different story.
Now, one man who wasn't there on Thursday but will be front and centre this coming weekend, even if he doesn't want to. Too bad, Dusty, because you were booting up for game 300, a massive milestone. And we thought we'd have some fun, Kane, and we'd name our top 5 players since Dusty debuted in 2010.
Take me through yours.
Well, I've gone with the biggest game player of all time, Dustin Martin, the only 3-time Norm Smith medalist. That's where you make your reputation.
Yes.
Lance Franklin, irresistible, a superstar of the game. Gary Ablett Jr. I mean, sorry, Gary, that's probably a little bit low, really, isn't it? And then Scott Pendlebury, I just think such an enduring midfielder for Collingwood. He will become the game's most capped player of all time. And you talk about big game players. Well, Luke Hodge, for me, Kane, is hard to go past, but talk me through yours.
Well, I can't complain with yours, and you've just revealed an exclusive that you think Scott Pendlebury's going to break Boomer Harvey's record. We'll get back to that a little bit later on, but he's the best player that I've ever played against or seen live, so hard to go past him. No one will ever kick 1,000 goals again, unfortunately. Dustin Martin speaks for itself. Marcus Bontempelli, what he has done, unbelievable. And the 6-time All-Australian Premiership captain, Max Gawn, I think will end up as a legend in the Australian Football Hall of Fame. So I don't think anyone's going to complain with each of our 5s.
Don't at me, though, on Twitter. It's really hard, so you try and do it as well.
You know that they'll at me regardless.
Now, it's been a wild weekend of footy, but is the best still yet to come? We kick things off tomorrow at the SCG, the Sydney Swans and the Geelong Cats. And then, hello, look at those 2 final matches at the MCG, Kane. They are going to be humdingers.
Yeah, we are due for a big Sunday, and we get it. We get an absolute ripper. I'm looking forward to see what Geelong do to try and combat Sydney's midfield, because that's been their area of concern. Sydney's midfield is flying. So that early game tomorrow, must watch at the SCG.
Kane, thanks for tonight.
Well done to you.
Thank you, and thanks for joining us on The Round So Far, brought to you by AAMI.